Hey, it's Randy from UC Status. Today I'm going to show you something brand new from our friends at Logitech. It's been a while since I've shown you some Logitech stuff, and they're really on a roll when it comes to Microsoft Teams rooms and related technologies. Today I'm going to show you something called the Logitech Rally Bar. I'm showing you the back of this on purpose. I'm just going to zoom in and show you all the ports before I mount it up, because this thing is heavy. Right, so I'm just going to try and take you through all the ports on the back of this thing, and there are lots. First thing you'll notice is this purple kind of top and bottom here, these little loops. That's for cable management. There's actually a screw-on bit of back panel that uses some thumb screws into these little sockets here to actually hide everything away, and you can chase the cables out through these cable management bars. Really nifty when you want a really neat and tidy installation, and of course we all do when aesthetics count. So there's loads of ports on the back. Starting at the top on the right hand side of your screen, you got the power. So it just uses AC power like you'd expect. Here you've got a USB, just a little mini kind of micro USB for the mic pods. So this has actually got built-in microphones, but you can actually extend it with up to, I think it's 3 mic pods. And you can either daisy chain them together or actually plug a single mic pod into a mic pod hub and then cascade out mics from there. You've also got not 1, not 2, but 3 USB-A ports. What would you use a USB-A port for, you ask? So one thing that springs to mind is a USB keyboard. I've actually got one plugged in. It's just a foldable USB keyboard with a trackpad. Logitech do one of their own that you can actually just use a little dongle, plunk it in there, and it's nice and tidy. You can keep your mouse and keyboard kind of on the table and out of harm's way. And I would actually recommend you use a mouse and keyboard with the Rally Bar, at least in Teams mode, until Microsoft and Logitech get around to certifying the Tap touch console for the Rally Bar in Teams mode. So another thing you might want to connect is this. It's the USB to Ethernet adapter. It's what's used to actually connect the actual Tap touch console. And then a third port for, whatever you might want to add. So moving over to the left-hand side, you've got HDMI in at the top. So that's to actually plug in a laptop, for instance, and share the screen either into a meeting or actually into the front of room display if you've just got some people in the room. You've got not 1 but 2 HDMI out, so this will actually support dual screen at the front of the room. You've got Ethernet, of course, and the bottom here you've got a USB-C port. So this USB-C port is actually for connecting up to laptops or PCs or even the Logitech switch to enable things like USB mode or BYOD mode. So the cable that comes with the Rally Bar is a USB-C to USB-A. If you plug in the USB-A into a normal laptop, that just uses the audio and video from the actual bar itself, including the front of room touchscreen, and you kind of borrow those as resources on your laptop. If you want to share your screen into that meeting, then you still need to plug in that HDMI cable. Now, if you take this a little bit further, you can actually plug in the actual Logitech Tap touch console, which I'll show you in a second, and actually plug in the HDMI in and the USB cable in the back of the actual Tap touch console. And then instead of actually having to stretch the wires from the front of the room connected directly to the Rally, they will actually connect directly to the Tap touch console, which connects back to the Rally, again using this USB to Ethernet adapter if you've got the Ethernet version of the Tap touch console. Or if you don't have the Ethernet adapter in your touch console, you can actually just use the strong USB cable that comes with it, and that just extends everything that's plugged into the Tap touch console onto the actual Rally Bar itself. Again, you can make all this neat and tidy by chasing cables through these little loops here. For instance, I'll just demonstrate really quickly. So if I wanted to chase that out the top, I can just do that, and I'll have a nice tidy install, and then I'll lock everything away using that little panel that I mentioned that just screws on the back, and it hides everything away except for a little opening around these grommet holders at the top and bottom. And then everything becomes neat and tidy, and away you go. Right, so just very quickly before I go on to actually mount the thing, I just wanted to show you how it mounts. So in my case, I've actually got the Visa mount module that you can buy separately, and this will actually attach via Visa mount to a back of a screen. So it's actually got these kind of rabbit ears that extend about 2 feet each, and you can kind of adjust it to actually find the right holes in your Visa mount, and away you go. It is actually quite convertible. You can move it around. In my mode, you've actually got this almost like shelf at the top with kind of a rubberized lip. I just use it to hold the remote control and a couple of other bits. But you can see down here, you've got these white bars. So these white bars actually attach to the underside of the Rally Bar just using these little thumb screws. So these thumb screws will kind of come up through the top and then find some little holes at the base of the actual device. When you buy the Rally Bar on its own, it actually comes with a stand, if you like, for putting onto a cabinet, you know, anything like that, a shelf at the front. So this is quite a heavy-duty device itself. It's about 1/8 of an inch, or maybe 3 mil thick, kind of steel all over the place. So very, very strong enough definitely to hold this, again, with the Visa mounts at the back. All right, so I'm just going to wheel it around. And again, you get these little thumb screws here, and we're there. Right, so I mentioned before that I just use a foldable USB keyboard. So this is the one I've got. It's just called the Jellycomb. I bought it off of Amazon. And again, it just folds down. You can keep that in your bag and away you go. Unfold it and you've got the full keyboard there. And you've got a trackpad with right and left click buttons. Of course, it's just USB. Again, I would always recommend that you have one of those, at least on standby, because it's actually a lot better than trying to type using the remote control. So, speaking of remote control, so this is what the remote control you actually get with the device itself. It comes with a little magnetic base with some little 3M kind of very, very sticky stickers that you can stick, you know, on the wall or kind of behind the screen, somewhere that is easy to find, obviously. But if you stick it to the wall, you can, of course, just use the magnetic mount to actually mount the remote where you need to. So I'm just going to move that out of the way and then show you the remote itself. So that's the remote that actually comes with it. To be honest, this is probably one of the weaker points of the Rally Bar itself. The thing I don't like about it is the D-pad. The D-pad is this big circular thing, and it doesn't have any definite directions. So there's, you know, up is not necessarily up unless you're pressing directly up. You can actually, you know, kind of get that a little bit wrong and go left or right, and effectively go diagonal. Some say that might actually be a good thing when you're trying to type. You can kind of go diagonally on the keyboard, but I just think it's a little bit fiddly. So if I'm honest, again, use a USB keyboard, and then when Microsoft and Logitech get around to certifying the actual Tap Touch console to go with the Rally Bar, then obviously you should be typing on that, so you won't have to worry about anything. So again, going through the keys here, you've got a back button, you've got a call end button, a mute button, volume up and down here, and of course you've got zoom in and out. Down here you've got a Teams button. So that Teams button is actually kind of a multi-function button. If you're going to use this in Teams mode, Logitech actually ship you a little sticker and a template for actually locating the sticker actually on the button. So it doesn't actually come as a Teams button, and I'll show you why in a second. The Rally Bar actually can be used with multiple video platforms and also just USB and BYOD mode. So up here you just got the familiar Teams Room on Android interface. Nothing really new to see, at least not right now. So the bar itself, I think it's actually quite a nice looking bar. Logi have gone for this, again, kind of cloth, carpeted feel. It's very tactile. It comes in two colors. It comes in this graphite color, but it also comes in white. I'll probably pop up a graphic now to show you the inside of the device, an X-ray view of the components inside. Suffice it to say, there's loads of kind of cone speakers and subwoofers and all kinds of stuff for very good audio out. There's also some built-in microphones. I'm not exactly sure where the microphones are. They're along the front somewhere, probably both sides, to try and pick up what they need to. Logitech say the Rally Bar is certified for up to 4.5 meters in distance. It'll probably go a little bit beyond that, but that's kind of what it's rated for, at least by Logitech and also Microsoft. they've certified it for their medium room size, which is, I think it's 4.5 by 5 meters. So again, moving on with the tour, you've got a status light here. So this just shows you that it's on itself. If you were to mute the bar, it goes red. That's when you're in a meeting. And then you've got not one but two cameras. So you probably didn't really notice it here, but this is actually a little camera that just frames the room itself. It's not really used for anything else that I can tell. It's just used to actually to show the whole room. I think it's got quite a wide field of view for getting everybody in. And what it does is it actually pairs with this other camera, which I understand is just the camera from the Rally, maybe slightly upgraded, very good optics. You can see it's quite a big reticule here. It does full PTZ, and I think it's like 15 times zoom. I mean, you can kind of see just how big the camera is itself. If I just hold my finger up to scale, it's absolutely enormous. This little housing around here is rubber. It's got kind of a rubberized front. And the reason is so that it can hide the gubbins behind. It does actually do full pan, tilt, and zoom. So it'll zoom in and out as you need to, but it will also pan right and left, up and down, wherever you need to. It's got some technology in called Right Sight, which will actually help the small camera tell the big camera where to actually go to find people and frame them to get them in picture. I'll show you some of the settings behind the scenes in a second. And then for those who haven't seen it, I've actually got the actual tap touch console. It doesn't work in Teams mode right now. We're still waiting for a certification and an update. It's probably going to be a little while just yet. But I've actually got one that I can use in other modes, just not in Teams mode. So the tap touch console, not much to see. You've got a motion sensor down the front, and then underneath you've got some thumb screws which reveal the ports and the cable management and that kind of thing. So then it just hides all the cables around the back. You don't have to worry about them. Right, so in Teams mode, you can obviously just start a meet now. Just going to use the keyboard. And big on-screen keyboard in kind of white comes up. So if I just wanted to type in Yoda, for instance, and then find Yoda, and I can actually just make a call. So I'm just going to end that. You get the idea. On my screen, I've actually got a dial pad because I've actually got a voice routing policy and phone system license associated with this actual account itself. So I can just bring up the dial pad, dial a number, and use it as a phone. And of course, I've got the more button here, which gets at the volume and mute, but also then the settings. So then if I go to settings, you can get at some other settings. So things like proximity join, I can enable it and disable it right from this interface. If you don't know what proximity join is, I think I've got another video on that somewhere. But effectively that means that you can, when you start a meeting either on your mobile phone or actually a laptop or something, it will use that Bluetooth beaconing to try and find the nearby room. It will find the Rally Bar and offer a chance to bring that into the meeting to use as your resources. You can drive the meeting from the laptop, kind of content only, or the mobile, kind of content only, but you use the audio and video and everything, and kind of steal the peripherals, as it were, from the Rally Bar itself. And of course, you got calling. That's to manage the calling settings. So if I go into calling, you can turn on and off call forwarding and all that kind of thing. Really, that's more to do with using a device like this in personal mode. You wouldn't necessarily go call forwarding from your meeting room or anything like that. Of course, you can, sort of change your voicemail, do things like delegates and that kind of stuff. Manage devices. So this is actually, again, sort of more of a personal mode feature. If you're using this maybe in an exec's office or something, and you want to pair your Teams client with this and just use this to have your calls, I think that would be a great experience. If you've got an office that lends itself to that, maybe the Rally Bar and a giant screen over the other side of the room, I think that would be quite a nice use case. The Right Sight and the cameras and all that kind of thing will try and find you wherever they can to actually bring you into that meeting. So managed device is more about that kind of better together experience. Of course, you got report an issue if you do have a problem, and then you can go ahead and sign out if you wanted to. So if you scroll down past sign out, you've also got device settings. So if I tap on device settings, that kind of flips from the familiar Teams mode over into the kind of Logitech world in what they call CollabOS. So if I just pop in the pin, so now you're in the CollabOS. So for this, you can obviously use the remote and the D-pad to navigate around the screen. So just take you on a little tour. You got the sync portal. So this is where you actually configure your connection to the Logitech Sync, that management platform that Logi has in the cloud. Here is where you actually check for updates. So you can see mine's nice and update, the CollabOS version 1.2.955. I'm going to skip over that one and that one for a second. You've got connectivity, so mine's just connected via Ethernet. So back to settings, peripherals. So in my case, it's just the remote that's paired. So the remote actually pairs via Bluetooth. If you have another remote or one of those kind of square remotes that you can get with other devices, you can go ahead and pair that if you wanted to. You just press a couple of buttons and it actually finds the remote and pairs it. So if you click on About, it just tells you all the things about the system itself, the serial number, the IP address, the app versions, and that kind of thing. So in display and audio, you can see I've got some audio options here. So I can adjust the bass volume. That's the kind of default volume, the volume that the room is always on. And if I want to know if that's good enough, I can go into test speakers. So I'll just click on test speakers. So this speaker test, if I tap this button here, it will actually play like almost a jingle or a song or something. I'm going to play that, see if it actually comes out on the video, just to demonstrate the power of the speakers themselves. So it just plays that on a loop, and obviously I can adjust the volume if I need to, up and down, to actually get at that. If I were an AV installer and I was actually installing one of these, so I would actually walk around the room and make sure I could actually hear it. I'd carry the remote and use the volume up and down to change this default volume thing while I was doing the test. Same thing with the testing the microphones. So if I go to test microphones, what I can actually do is actually start recording. It will then record me. I can walk around the room, describe where I am in the room, and just make sure that it can actually hear me. When I go and play that back, I can judge for myself, if the microphones that are built into the device are actually good enough. Again, I can plug in some Rally mic pods and put them on the table, even mount them in the ceiling to try and extend that audio out a further distance away. I've also got some features down here for bass boost. So again, when you're using mic pods, you might want to adjust the volume of the speakers. You got AI noise suppression, which is pretty cool. It will use AI to try and get rid of some of that unwanted noise, like AC noise or typing on a keyboard, clicking around, moving in your chair, that kind of thing. These are all beta features in the current firmware. I guess they're just still testing them, making sure that they're actually going to work well. You've also got something down here called reverb control, which lets you adjust the echo in the room. So if you've got a room that doesn't have any soft furnishings, maybe you've got glass walls, you've got a hard surface on a table, you've got a tile floor or something like that, concrete floor, that kind of thing, you're going to have a lot of echo in that room. Unless you put in some sort of acoustic dampening panels, either in the ceiling, on the walls, or get some soft kind of furnishings, then you're going to get that echo. So with the reverb control, that will actually allow you to adjust the echo in the room. Again, it's a beta feature. You can kind of turn it on, leave it as normal, as there's a recommended setting. It will use its little algorithms and try and find the best kind of echo cancellation that it needs to. If you've got a really echoey room, then you can turn it up to aggressive and see if that actually helps. Right, now you've got camera settings. So camera settings, I mentioned this right sight. So again, right sight uses a combination of both of the cameras to try and find the optimum frame for making sure that everybody that needs to be in the shot in the room actually is in the shot. So with right sight, you got three different settings. You got dynamic, on the call start, and off. So if you turn it off, then you just leave the camera where you want it to. You adjust it here and now in the settings and actually just frame the shot you want. And every time somebody comes in to use it, the camera will be exactly there until somebody goes in and moves it. You got on-call start, which will actually do a one-time framing. So that might be good if you've got everybody in the room that needs to be in the room before you actually jump into that meeting. what it'll do is use the right site. It will find that optimum shot of everybody that's in the room, and it will just stay put. That might be a good setting. But what happens if another person comes in and they're out of frame? They're never going to be in the frame because it's only going to adjust the camera at the start of the call. If you put it on dynamic, a little bit of a trade-off then. It will actually try and find that optimum shot, but it'll keep trying to find that optimum shot as things change. So I would suggest you try both of those things, have a few people when you're doing your testing, move around and see what happens. A lot of people complain about all of this kind of AI, group framing, speaker tracking stuff. Some people say it kind of causes a little bit of motion sickness when they're in meetings. They would actually just rather turn it off. Everybody's trying to find that actual perfect setting, the kind of Goldilocks zone between making you sick and actually being a useful feature. So I would say try all three modes, see what works for you and your client if you're installing it for somebody else. And if you have to adjust it, you can obviously go back into settings and go ahead and do that. You can also turn on room occupancy. I'm going to turn that to always on. So what that will do is actually report back to the Logi Sync cloud-based management platform and show you whether the room is occupied. Right, so with camera image test, I can actually turn on the camera and start to adjust things to my preferences. So I'm just going to hit camera test. Of course, you can see the room, and now because I've got right side turned on to dynamic, it's actually used that AI to try and find me in the room. I think it's done a pretty good job. You can see it's already moved twice as I've moved around, so if I kind of go out of frame, it's not going to do much more because it's at its maximum pan to the left. I'm going to press the back button and cancel out of that. So with these camera tests, audio tests and things, it allows you or your AV installer to actually try and find that optimum audio and also video for the room and how are you going to use it. Right, so I'm just going to go back to settings. So if I go into system, it allows you to adjust things like the power saving features. So if I go show options, what I can do is enable power saving mode. So after 15 minutes, it will go into standby. Good for green credentials and that kind of thing. I can also allow the viewfinder to wake the device. So if I wave in front of this, for instance, it will actually wake the device. If you've got glass walls and the camera will actually pick people up, it will automatically stay on if it can see them. So obviously use that with caution. And of course I've got the HDMI CEC. So if I've got a screen that will actually go off when the system goes into power saving mode, when the system wakes up again, it will actually send that CEC command down the HDMI cable to the screen itself and then wake the screen up as well. So not only is it going to send this device to sleep, but it'll send the screen itself to sleep and then wake it up when you actually need it. Again, great green creds, I would say there. But you kind of expect those things in this day and age. Of course, you got some regional settings. I'm not going to bore you with all this. It lets you set up the time and date in the format that you want. So what I really want to show you in the system settings is here. You've got the service provider. So the service provider in my case is Microsoft Teams. And of course I can go ahead and sign out and sign in with another room account, etc. But if I go into reset service provider, it will actually show you the options that I've got for changing from Microsoft Teams mode here. I can reboot the device and make it a Zoom room. You got BYOD mode, and with BYOD mode, as I said, you can either plug into the HDMI and USB straight out of the front of this, or actually out the back of the Tap Touch console, and actually use the audio and video in the room itself as the audio and video resources of your laptop. And you can rock up with any meeting, doesn't really matter what it is. You can even join a Teams meeting. That's how I tested it the other day. And again, you select inside of Teams, you select this is your camera and the mic and speakers as your audio devices. Works really well. Of course, if you wanted to join Zoom or something else, then you can. You can also reboot into RingCentral, Pexip, or GoToRoom mode. I imagine this list will grow over time. I'm going to stay in Teams mode because I don't need to use the other modes. BYOD mode is actually quite cool. As I said, I tested it the other day and we've got a few customers that really want to use that. But it's not particularly exciting for a demo. I'd have to get the laptop out. It doesn't really lend itself to video very well. So I'm just going to stay in the Teams mode. So I'm just going to come out of that. What I'm going to show you, again, I said I was going to go back to peripherals in a minute. So what I've actually done is I've actually plugged in the Tap Touch console. And because I'm in settings, what it's done is it actually has moved all the settings over to the Tap Touch console. And maybe you can read that here, but it says continuous settings on the Logitech Tap, and it's got a little picture of the Tap itself. And then when you're done, we'll take you back to Teams. So I'm just going to prop up the Tap itself. You can see I've got all those settings that I was using on the screen. Again, with a mouse and keyboard, I can get out with touch here. So if I go into System, of course, I can navigate around. It actually makes for a much better experience. So if I go back to Teams, this just goes into kind of default Logi mode, again, because this doesn't work with the Tap in Teams mode right now. If I do want to use the Logi Tap as the kind of remote control, if you like, for this, and I want to go back into settings, you can't just go back to More and Settings and then Device Settings, so that will just take you straight back to here. There is a little trick though. If you just hold down the Call End button for about 5 seconds, it will go into settings mode automatically, and it will take you to the pin. For some weird reason, it takes you into the dial pad there, but if I just type in the pin on the actual Tap device, and then I'm back into settings on the actual Tap device. And I go back to Teams, it just brings up the dial pad, which is a little oddity. Probably something to do with how the Tap works with the Teams interface right now. So I'm just going to show you one last thing. And to me, this is kind of almost an afterthought. That's why I kind of left it for the end. It's not particularly exciting. Going to give you 3 seconds to guess what that is. You give up? No, it's not a bath plunger, but you'd be forgiven for thinking so. You know, either a sink plunger for your kitchen or a bath plunger, that kind of thing. Just going to give you a clue and kind of bring it down here. Yes, it's actually the lens cover. So if I wanted to cover the lens, I just put this rubberized bath plunger and then this little magnetic companion in front of both of the lenses. Some people don't like to be watched or feel like they're being watched when they're in a meeting, so they like to actually cover the lens. In my opinion, other vendors have much better ways of doing this. It works. It's a little low tech. Maybe it's because of the size of the lens itself. They didn't want to try and add any mechanisms for doing anything. It's probably better than nothing, but I think they probably could have done a little bit better. So that's it. That's all I wanted to show you. It's the Logitech, or Logi as they like to be known for their AV division. It's the Rally Bar in Microsoft Teams mode. If this video has been useful, please take a moment to like and subscribe. I definitely appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.